What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Marc Campbell, from the Low Man Help Substack, as well as the Low Man Help podcast. Marc, back-to-back nights, back-to-back big nights in the NBA.
Thanks for having me back, man. What a cool day to come back in on the Luka revenge story night. Like this is awesome. I'm so pumped, man. That was amazing.
It really did live up to the hype. I mean, like emotionally, the game was good. I know it got away, a little bit down the stretch, but it was a good game, and just the emotions, the theatrics of it all were incredible.
Man, I love Petty. So seeing him go back in there, I could have lived with if they would have had a cutaway. You know, they do like the Peyton Manning cast or anything like. If they would have had an alt cast that just had a camera shot on Nico and Rob Pelinka as the game was, I would have been dialed in. You wouldn't have been able to get me off of that. I would have been dialed in for that.
So how petty were you watching Duke collapse then, early last week? Is that, if you guys don't know, Marc Campbell played at North Carolina. So, I know that runs deep. So were you, what were you doing as you watched that game?
There's nothing better. Like truly, there's the only thing that's better is seeing Carolina win, like seeing our guys win. But if it's not that, then it's seeing an epic collapse. Like you don't want to see them get blown out. You want to see it real. You want to see it cut deep. Like you want to see it feel like, oh my God, how could we let that get away? So yeah, incredibly satisfying. But I am excited to see Cooper Flagg in the NBA. He's been one of the Duke guys over the years. I don't have a hatred towards their guys per se. I can appreciate really great basketball. Like they played fun basketball. I'm excited to see him in the league, but like seeing them just let it slip away, like it felt good. I can't lie. It felt good.
Do you have you have a list of favorite Duke guys? Like there's a few guys that you're like, you know what, I'll forgive it because I just like his game.
Yeah, it's actually I grew up, and one of the first like college basketball teams that I truly fell in love with and thought like, man, this is really cool basketball was the Jay Williams, Mike Dunleavy, Carlos Boozer team, and they were in this stretch where they were playing against the Steve Blake, Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter, Maryland teams. And that was like such a fun time in basketball. And it was when I was in middle school, like early high school. So like that shaped my mind. So that I had a few good vibes towards Duke guys. So like they'll always be, in that bucket. And there's been a few after that have been fun to watch. But like in general, no, like, it's a great day to be a Tar Heel, man. Bump those guys.
We're obviously going to get into this Luka story here right off the top, but we're also going to run through because last night was jam-packed. The Clippers got a huge win and might be the hottest team in the NBA. They beat the Rockets. We're going to talk about that. The Warriors somehow blow it against the Spurs and Harrison Barnes. We'll talk about that one as well. The Bulls and the Heat had a pre-play-in matchup. They're going to match up again here in about 5 days for all the marbles, but this was ostensibly for home court. And then later on, we'll talk about the Nuggets beating the Kings in David Adelman's debut. Some very interesting stuff, and I can't wait to talk about my guy, Jalen Pickett, who we'll get to later on. I think I have to claim him, James. I might have to add him to my guys list now now that he's officially in there. There we go. He's my guy. But we're going to start with the top story, of course. One of the biggest games of the entire season, just from a narrative standpoint. Luka Doncic makes his return to Dallas. Emotional. Cried as the intro, he comes back, and it was weird. Some people were talking about, do you do a welcome back video, a thank you Luka video after you trade him, and how weird it is? Of course you do it. There were t-shirts. There just was so much going on in this one that it really did feel like a moment. So before we get into the game, just tell me about the moment, the presentation. Sometimes the league does a good job presenting itself. I thought the league and the TV partners, ESPN last night, did a great job of presenting this moment and kind of showing us everything that was going on.
Yeah, this was awesome. It was really awesome. I texted a few friends and I asked them, they were a part of the Ben Simmons return game. And then my friend Danny was a part of Kawhi Leonard's return game to San Antonio. And we talked about a few of those in comparison to this, and everything that came back was like, those guys really wanted to be out. Like they made us think of being out. Luka was blindsided by it, just out of nowhere. So all the petty that came out with the Gatorade commercial was incredible, with the towel saying traitor across it. the build up with the intro video. Like, to me, I thought it was a little bit, were they trying to psych him out? Like, I was thinking of basketball. Like, if this was like a psych out pitch, that they're trying to throw at him. Like, he was welling up. That was deep. And the t-shirts were totally uncalled for. I don't know how you do that. Like, you guys sent him away. How do you sign off on these t-shirts? That's stupid, just stupid. But all of the pageantry that came with that game, it was covered so well. And rarely does the game and the performance of the player live up to that hype, because there's such emotion and such like groundswell of noise around it, that usually, like, you could see in the first couple of minutes, like, the Lakers guys were like, all right, we're going to try to get him going right now. And it didn't really get going till he got a few switches and buckets. But once the floodgates open, man, you could tell, like, he just has it. And I texted with a few people on the Lakers staff, and like, the one thing that came back was like, he's special. He's a one of one. Like, there's nothing like his mentality and his mindset. Like, him and LeBron are in the same camp when it comes to that. And to see him really like go out there and have his moment, and have Nico sit there in the tunnel and have to watch all of it, I loved it, man. It was so incredible.
It was incredible. And I think I've made this point on the show, but maybe not. I've certainly said it on air before somewhere, but there are players who you're just not surprised that they step up to the moment. And one of the big examples of this was Kobe Bryant's last game. He scored 60 points. Of course he did. He's like a type of guy that was a big moment. It's the send-off. Did it take him 40 shots or whatever to get there? Yes, but he was going to have a memorable moment when he knew the moment called for it. And Luka's the exact same guy. Like, you just knew, pencil him in for 45, because you know he's a guy who is going to show up for this one. And yes, tears, emotions, distractions, jump ball, and he's locked in right away. And it's like, of course he's going to deliver in this moment. I think there's something special about there's some players that you just know will meet it. And I think there's something that tells you something about them.
He's absolutely one of those. And like, I played in Europe, and I played against some EuroLeague teams. And the fact that this dude was 18 years old and the MVP of EuroLeague just tells you like where he's at mentally in terms of how much professional basketball he's played, how the odds have been stacked against him. Because like, when you go through that kind of journey, you're starting off as a towel boy, like nobody's looking for you. And then you go in these arenas and you're not getting calls, like you're getting bumped on everything. And like, he just kept churning and churning and churning. And the fact that he's like come from that, you see his first couple of playoff series. I mean, he went up against Kawhi, Paul George, Pat Beverly, like they had no answers for him, like on the road in Phoenix, like just absolutely took that team's throat. So he's built for that type of stuff. And there was no doubt that he was going to show up here. Now, he might have gone 0 for 12 from 3, but he definitely wasn't going to go 0 for 2. Like, he was going to let it rip, and they were going to back him to be like, this is your moment. Like, go step on their throat. And it just totally the right player to meet that moment. And he's just absolutely special.
You're right, though, that the Lakers had his back in this one, and I do think that's kind of an important thing. That's one of the things I thought, where they're all playing hard for this moment to allow him the stage to do what he did last night, and that was big. But the game was electric itself for a half. The third quarter, the Lakers started to pull away, but there were some big plays, and I thought Dallas met the moment too. There were emotional, big-time defensive plays. The Lakers are just better than Dallas right now, obviously without Kyrie Irving, but I thought the game itself was kind of interesting. So what stood out about the game?
Yeah, no matter how Nico Harrison put this roster together, how he acquired the players, you can at least see the vision. And the vision is, we want to be, and you might not agree with the vision, but there is a vision there. Like, we want to be one of the bigger lineups. We want to be able to go double big. And you could see there were stretches in the second half where Gafford and Anthony Davis really dominated the offensive glass, the defensive glass. They got anything they wanted. Lively was in the mix for there. But the thing is, in order to do that, you have to be able to survive in today's NBA with pick and roll coverages. And to have two big guys out on the floor, you're not going to play a lot of coverage schemes, because the spacing and the shooting out there, there's a lot of room that you have to cover in terms of help to rotate, help to X out, things like that. And big guys aren't known for being able to cover those spaces. So the one thing that Dallas does do is they try to switch these pick and rolls to keep their shell intact, to not have big guys running on these long closeouts. And Luka Doncic is not the guy to do that to. They switched 57% of their pick and rolls last night on Doncic, and he's not the one, because he sees a big and it's barbecue chicken time. He is cooking, and he licks his lips when he sees it. He's like, this is perfect. The Rudy Gobert last year in the playoffs. He saw Anthony Davis got it last night. Anytime they switched lively on him, it was to his spots, whether it was pull-ups, whether it was layups, step back threes, anything he wanted. So you can see this vision for Dallas and you know that it's possible, but the Lakers are that matchup, and Luka specifically, that you just can't switch a big onto him. And you saw it in OKC with Hartenstein the other day. You can't do it. He's built to destroy those matchups. And it really takes what Dallas wants to do out of their comfort zone, because you can't go double big. And if you only go single big with how they're constructed, well, that's not really what they're meant to do. That's not their advantage. And I think at times when Luka was on the bench, they were able to survive switching those screens. But anytime he was back in the game, he was so sharp in those actions last night. 1.346 points per direct on pick and roll. Like that's a outlandish number. So to me, that was the story of it. And that was really the thing that took Dallas out of, this is our advantage of being big, but the Lakers really neutralized that with Luka in the pick and roll.
As great as he is in the pick and roll, you still need teammates who read the court to his tendencies. How do you screen? How do you move off things? How do you space? When do you cut? All this different stuff. I'm pretty impressed with how quickly the Lakers have absorbed that. That's one of the things that stands out, is I think the Lakers have really done a good job of figuring out how to play with him.
Yeah, I think it starts with LeBron. And it starts with LeBron. I was on here when they played Charlotte, and Legs and I were here. You were on vacation, baking in the sun, doing your thing, pina coladas. And Legs was pretty, we were both on the same page of, it's going to have to be Luka. But he wasn't in shape. He wasn't ready. And you could see LeBron was still trying to do it. But Luka can't do the roll off the ball. He's not built to do it right now. And LeBron can. And one thing that I think LeBron should get so much credit for in this situation is he has really passed the torch. He has become an off-ball mover. He has become a closeout attacker. He has become an offensive rebounder. He has found pockets to get into to move the ball. There was the one possession last night where it looked like he was just playing around with a few kids. I think it was late in the fourth, and LeBron was everywhere. Offensive rebound, pass here, pass there. He gets so much credit in my mind for making this Lakers thing move, because as soon as he decides, hey, this is what we're doing, we're playing off of Luka's action, we're moving to Luka's rhythm, everybody else is going to fall in line. And you're right, everybody does have to fall in line, but it comes from LeBron's, I think, push to be like, this is the way we're going to play. I'm leaning all in. And once that guy leans all in, if you're his teammate, you can't not follow, right?
Of course. And it's kind of surprising to me, to be honest, with LeBron a little bit, because as great as LeBron has been, I don't think we've ever seen him adjust to another player to this degree. There's been obviously sacrifices. I'm not saying selfish, but he's always been like, I'm doing my thing and I'll change a little bit to the texture. This seems by far the most he's looked and said, okay, now he's me. He's doing the stuff I usually do. Yeah. So where do I fit in? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And Reeves, I've talked to people about Reeves. Reeves coming from that undrafted place, like, he's always been in the sphere of, hey, where's the opportunity? Wherever it is, I'm going to do my best in that. So whether it's on ball or closeouts or finding pick and roll pockets, like, he's in. Same thing with Dorian Finney-Smith, like, coming from an undrafted guy, like, he's got so much chemistry with Luka from Dallas and moving on. He does the exact same stuff too, finding pockets, spotting up, cutting, reading the court. And then Rui's done a wonderful job of mixing in. And that, to me, that's their death lineup. And I don't know if it's the best death lineup in the league, but man, it's close. Last night, they were lights out. That lineup played together for 19 minutes. They were a plus 31 in 19 minutes last night. 183 offensive rating, 183 points per 100 possessions. They were just out of control. And it wasn't just last night, it's the whole year. And I think it's what you're saying about those four guys have learned how to move off of Luka's rhythm. They've understood what coverages he's going to see, where the open pockets are going to be, and where they're going to find shots. And NBA players are so talented that if they know where they're going to find shots at, if they know where they're coming from, and they're moving and they're touching the ball and they're feeling a part of everything, the rhythm that's there, they're so talented. So to see that group get it together and put together this run that they're on right now, that group is over 200 possessions plus 22 rating. That's top percentile in the league. 132 net or offensive rating and a 110 defensive rating. They stand up to people. They have a lot of size out there, and they rebound and they defend well. So that's the group that I'm looking for when this team gets in a series. That's their ace up the sleeve. That's their death lineup.
There's no question it is. And what's interesting about last night's game with regards to that is you're going small, even though you're big all over the court, there's no center, there's no big guy. And when you go up against the Mavericks, they have multiple guys who can punish you with size, with physicality, with offensive rebounding. And yet last night, they only had 9 offensive rebounds the entire game. So to me, that's the thing you look at is say, okay, well, some team is going to physically just be imposing on them in the paint. But that has not been, even Denver, Minnesota, the teams they've played so far, that has not been the case at all. How do they do it?
Yeah. Well, I think some of them last night you saw, like, sometimes they'll just give up a bucket. Like Luka got buried a few times on Gaffer, and it's just, all right, cool, you can have this one. But in general, what they do really well is they fight. Whether it's, Luka on somebody, and in the post he fronted AD, got a steal. In the first half, you saw it Reeves fronting, and not only are they fighting there, but the coverage on the backside, the attention to detail, the early help, the early communication. Those 5 guys are really cohesive in how they're defending as a team. Nobody's out there on an island. They're all working together, working for one another, and taking the problems and sniffing them out early with early help. And I think, to me, that's what sets that group apart and why they're able to play small. They fight like hell early in the possession to make sure they're doing the work early so that they're not behind in the play, because they can't be behind in the play. They're not big enough to cover up mistakes.
But what is a team going to be able to do? Because as much as I agree with that, so you're saying do your work early, you kind of use speed to make up for size, especially in the center. And again, they're so long that it's not like they're a small team anywhere else, just at the center spot. But I still feel like there's a vulnerability there that a team can exploit. What are teams going to have to do to beat that lineup? Because I agree with you. If the Lakers win it this year or go far in the playoffs, it's going to be because of that lineup. So what's the weakness with the size part of it?
Yeah, I think it's always Luka on that end of the floor. Like, he's always susceptible to being hunted and being put in the actions. We saw it against Boston with Jaylen Brown. Like, they went after him every single chance they got. I think the Lakers have done a good job of trying to cover that up. They try to shrink the shell, get in gaps. And so something that comes to mind there is you're going to have Luka and Reeves, but LeBron, Rui, and Dorian Finney-Smith, they cover so much ground, and they're such intelligent defenders that they're doing their best right now to cover it up. Now, it could get to the point where, say, they match up with Oklahoma City, and it's just Shea every single time hunting Luka and putting him in ISOs. Like, that's going to be real trouble for them. Like, there are teams that can get to things that scare them and that are really difficult. But on the other end of the court, that offensive group, 132 points over a long stretch of possessions, like, that offensive group can absolutely cook, and they have a lot of solutions to things. So they have this other side of it where even if there are lineups that you feel like you can put them in danger and put them in trouble, those lineups might not necessarily be the ones that can actually defend them. And sometimes it comes down to just a few makes and misses in a playoff game. And you kind of think you want to bet on that side of the group offense for the Lakers team.
What's the 3-point shooting in that lineup? Do you have that in front of you? Does that show up in what you have?
I don't. It's not on cleaning the glass. No.
Yeah, because that's going to be, to me, another variable. It's a variable for everyone. But when you talk about Luka conceding some shots inside, or really any of them in that lineup, you get a post up and you're buried a little too deep. Just don't foul and let them go. And I think that's smart in today's NBA, because you will give up those. As long as you're not giving up too many, a team's not going to beat you on a steady diet of Julius Randle post-ups, right? If something like that, you're going to beat them if you can make threes. But when you look at that lineup, to me, they have it's an above average 3-point shooting group, but it's not like an elite one. And so to me, that is another variable, especially when you talk about if you get into a game 6 or a game 7, that's another vulnerability there is, okay, is Dorian Finney-Smith going to make enough of these now to punish if another team can punish him inside?
Yeah, there was a stretch last night. I think it's about the shooting. There's a stretch where all their shots come with such rhythm and balance, because if it's not Luka on a switch, it's most likely that they've brought a player up to the level to blitz Luka, and now we're playing 4-on-3 in the pocket. And so to me, those are the actions where last night Dorian Finney-Smith had a run in the second quarter that symbolizes kind of what you need to do to be able to fit in with a group like that and also amplify it. And Dorian Finney-Smith had a stretch where he had a closeout, help up the lane, got a dump off pass for a dunk. There was a Reeves pick and roll. He cut baseline, got a layup. He had 2 pick and rolls with Luka where he was the screener and he set Gortat screens. So, he screened like his defender so Luka could go get a layup. And then he hit a spot up 3 from the corner. All those actions, they symbolize what that group is, which is just high basketball IQ. They know where to be, they know when to be there, and they know that they're playing off LeBron and Luka's advantages. They're not trying to create these advantages. They're not trying to step outside of their skill level or their comfort zone. And that stuff is why I kind of believe in that group. They have a high IQ as a group, and they also have a high self-awareness meter of what they're supposed to be doing out there.
And I credit JJ Redick with a lot of this, because I think when you think about modern coaching, like being able to figure out what's the most important thing our team needs to know, and then can the smart players on the floor figure out the rest. And it almost seems like, well, one, defensively, they come up with some very creative stuff. They fly around, but offensively, it's like, hey, the spacing and the screen details. And when you mentioned the Gortat screen, teams will try to switch. When you run pick and roll, they'll try to switch, or sometimes bring the guy guarding the screener high up on the floor. And so the Gortat screen is almost anticipating that. So you screen your own guy, and the on-ball defender thinks that you have help, thinks that there's switch coming or somebody showing, and you just end up turning the quarter. And those things, it's easy to call out of a timeout. It's easy to do this. But what we're talking about with the Lakers is their role players now are reading that in real time. So it doesn't matter what coverage you throw. They read it immediately and say, oh, it's this screen, or I got to flip it this way, or I got to slip out. And that's what's impressive about it. It's almost like, hey, focus in on this. Luka and LeBron will take care of the rest. You guys just need to focus on these things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Every single coverage in the NBA has a solution. And it's not always that your team is equipped to best solve that puzzle, but there is a solution out there. It just happens that with Luka and LeBron, they're at least the floor for them skill-wise on every single solution is high enough that they feel comfortable going to it. And that's the thing that puts defenses in such a vice, because there's nothing you can funnel them into. There's not a box that you can put them in where you say, like, you know what, this is the thing they least like, because that's what you're really doing. You're betting on probabilities of, like, this team least likes to do this. Let's try to get them to do it. There's nothing for them that's, below average when it comes to this solution is not great for them. So the fact that they're willing to take what the defense gives them in every single coverage, that's, I think, what makes them such a high level offensive team with that lineup.
Yeah. They have the skill set because you have those two guys. They do have weaknesses, but you have a skill set that's high enough to be a jack of all trades offense. And then you have decision makers who are not going to mess it up. So you're always going to be in position to get the B plus opportunity at, and in some cases A plus if you're getting the stuff you actually like. Is there anything else?
Those guys, they can hit those ceilings, right? Like everything's B plus, and then they can hit the ceilings like last night where it's 7 threes from Luka, or games where LeBron really goes off. Everything's here, and then they have a great high floor and they're high ceilings. They're the perfect daily fantasy player.
Is there anything else from this game that stood out?
Man, a ton stood out, really, but that was kind of the story. The story was this thing that Nico wanted to build in his head. Like, it just happens that Luka is the thing that's best equipped to decimate it as well. So having him come back, having him have that moment. I thought one thing, I don't know where you stand on this, but I saw this clip making the round. And I know Nico's been, he's been a social media, spotlight. Everybody's been looking for him. But the fire Nico chants were pretty loud last night at the end of the game. And at some point, you just have to think, like, how much does this weigh on ownership in Dallas? And, like, does he have a ton of time left where he's going to be able to see this decision out? Because it does seem like this thing kind of went forward and it was like, oh, well, I'm going to say it's because of defense. And I don't know how much that can live on when Luka has, like, big runs, especially if LA makes a big run in this playoffs.
I will say that with Dallas, I mean, the Nico part of this, it's just, you make that move, you have to live with the risk. Like, nobody could have thought you make that move, there's a downside that's, like, disastrous. And so you kind of have to sit there and hear the chance. And I'm glad he showed up. I'm glad it wasn't one of those where he just was MIA. I'm going to be behind the scenes tonight. I'm glad he was there to absorb it. I will say it's weird to me, though, that the Mavs fans were cheering for the Lakers. That's the one thing it's hard for me to put, and I'm not going to judge, but it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes, because what a flood of emotions. Like, you're more mad at your team than you are at the rival. The Lakers are everyone in the West's rival. But it was weird just seeing that Mavs crowd. I mean, they were as loud for Luka and the Lakers as they were for the Mavs last night. And I don't know, something was weird about it.
He's their guy. Could you imagine if this trade deadline, out of nowhere, Calvin Booth was like, Jokic is out of here. I'm bringing in, we need to go guard heavy in 3-point shooting. I'm going to go get Anthony Simons and Shannon Sharp from Portland. And then Jokic comes back.
If he's on the Lakers, I'm sorry.
There's no way. That's no way. And when I talked to Danny about this last night and this morning, like that was the thing that we both came away with. And Luka didn't want out. He wanted in. And the fact that they said like, hey, you're out in the dead of the night, not saying like, hey, look, we want to move on. Where do you think or working, like just dead of the night, like, hey, you're out of here. I'm only offering it to one team. Like everything around it, like you can see why Dallas fans have backed Luka in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, I understand backing the player too. And it does raise the question of who are we really fans of? Like, are we fans of the organization, the city, the jersey, the player, the specific collection of players? It's a weird mix. And I understand the emotions. I'm just saying it's the Lakers, the one team that if it were me, I'd be like, you know what? I love Yoke, but no, I'm not doing it. All right. Any final thoughts just to put a bow on this game?
No, sign me up for all the petty. I'm ecstatic that the hype lived up to the build up. I'm ecstatic that Luka had his moment there. He deserved it, not only for the tribute, but also the game he played. 45, 8 and 6, 7 threes, statement win. Like I feel great about that.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we got 4 games to run through. Actually 5 if you want to talk about the Suns getting eliminated. We have to talk about that as well. So we're going to hit on a bunch of games as well as give our shout outs of the week on the other side. First, let me tell you guys about Fitbod. There's plenty of fitness influencers out there on Instagram, on TikTok, anywhere else, and they're all trying to sell you less but charge you more. Fitbod combines the workout planning and tracking you need to stay consistent and make progress. I tell you guys about this product every single week because it really is incredible. It personalizes a workout plan based on everything, on several inputs. First, you're going to put in, your height, your weight, your age, all those things. Then you're going to put in your goals. Am I trying to lose weight, build muscle, get stronger? How frequently can you work out? And then you're going to tell it what equipment you have. So you can go to your gym and say, okay, I've got these things to work with. Or maybe you're on the road in a hotel and you're a little bit more limited. You just put in those inputs and it'll spit out a workout that's perfectly tailored to you, as if you had a personal trainer with you. Tim Grover in your pocket. You got him right there. You just put in your inputs and it's going to tell you something that makes sure you maximize your workout. And not just that, it's also going to help you develop a long-term plan. So you can say, hey, I got 3 months, maybe you have a wedding or something coming up. I want to get in shape for this or that. It's going to keep you accountable by making sure that you're hitting the benchmarks that it knows will get you where you want to go. It's incredible. It levels up your routine. It keeps you accountable. And it is so easy to use. It's got all these different features that are not complicated. It's not one of these things where you're getting lost or getting confused. It's got all these features that are designed to make your workout simple, easy, effective, and consistent. Level up your workout. Join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. And if you use our code, you're going to get 25% off. If you use fitbod.me/allNBA, you can also try the app for free for 7 days. I'm telling you, if you try it for 7 days and you give it a shot, you really give it a shot and work out and follow it, you're going to sign up. It's that easy to use and it's that intuitive and it's that helpful. So go to fitbod.me/allNBA and check it out. Also going to tell you guys about Timeline. The cells in our bodies are the building blocks of life. Timeline is a supplement that works with those cells to give you more energy, feel stronger during workouts, and preserve health and mobility as you start to age. The patent ingredient is called MitoPure, a postbiotic nutrient that clears our dysfunctional mitochondria, aka the cell's battery packs. I'm not a scientist, but I am reading this off the sheet. And it's pretty interesting. With regular use, you'll see and feel the difference in the form of improved energy levels, better workouts, faster recovery, more endurance, and more. MitoPure recharges your cells and helps your body system to work better. And MitoPure is the only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. It's pretty interesting stuff. Right now, you can go to Timeline and get 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/allNBA to get started today. It's also in the description of the show. That's timeline.com/allNBA. All right, back here on the All NBA show with my guy, Marc Campbell. You can find him on the Low Man Help, Substack, and Pod. So, all right, let's run through a couple games here. And I know we weren't like locked into these ones with the ones we were the other ones, but the Clippers get the win 134-117 over the Rockets. And what's interesting to me about this one, the Clippers did it right this year. If you look at the Clippers over the last 6 years, they've been overhyped and underdelivered and fallen apart. This is the first year nobody's talking about the Clippers. And lo and behold, they've won 16 of their last 19 games. Let me give you some stats. Their only losses are to Cleveland, Oklahoma City, and then New Orleans, which is a little bit of a curveball. They're number 1 in offensive rating, number 2 in defensive rating, a plus 17.1 net over their last 15 games. They're dominant at the exact right time, and yet they're completely under the radar. What do you make of them?
I think this is exactly where they want to be. Every single year it's been, finals pick Clippers, finals pick this, like best team in the West. Like, I think they're exactly where they want to be. And I think for the first time in a long time, their roster makes sense in terms of they have their North Star. They have, James Harden, we're going to play from his actions. Kawhi's off the ball a little bit more, back to his San Antonio role a little bit. And around those guys, they have guys who have self-awareness and they have guys who plug a need, as opposed to people like Paul George who are looking to, be a little bit more on ball, show a little bit more. And I think they had a little bit of this your turn, my turn. They never found the cohesion. But right now with Chris Dunn, with Ivan Zubac playing incredible, they have these guys that know exactly what they're trying to do and how they're going to be amplified by the star players. And I couldn't be happier for Kawhi to come back and have a little bit of a boost in health and maybe get a real run at having a playoff shot again.
Zubac's had a triple-double last night, 20, 11, and 10. He is such a good player. He's one of Legs' favorite players. And when I look, like right now, if you just look at the standings, Denver, and this will change, 2 games left to go for everybody. Teams are going to rise and fall. But if it were to be Denver and the Clippers, Denver's interesting. We'll talk about him later. But Zubac is a rare example of a guy who can guard Jokic. Not shut him down, just guard him. Make it difficult. He's big. He's fundamental. He's not going to bite on different things. And so I look at that and I go, man, that number 1 defensive rating over the last 15 games, that's exterior with length and it's interior with size. They have a rare combination of all types of defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do a great job at really taking the fight to the offense at the point of attack with Dunn and Leonard and some of these guys on the wing. And then Zubac, I mean, he's going to be an all-NBA defender, whether it's first or second team. He's been absolutely incredible. He rebounds really well. But one thing that he does so well is he's able to play both in pick and roll coverages. So they play him in drop a ton.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give his hips up to the ball handler, because when you're a ball handler and there's 2-on-1, you're playing against drop, what you want to do is you want to make that drop defender break his coverage. You want to make him give all of his attention to the ball or try to play both. And that will give you the read. If he doesn't give you all of his attention, it's got to be your finish. But once he does, then it's got to be lob, pocket pass, or skip if there's low man help. So with Zubac, he does such a wonderful job of keeping his hips in the position where he can continue to play both, and he has the length and the size and the timing to be able to contest shots, even if he doesn't commit all of his energy to the ball handler. And to me, that's one of the things that he does better than almost any other big in the league. Al Horford's great at it. There's other really good ones, but he does such a wonderful job. And mixing that with the Chris Dunn, with the Kawhi Leonard, with the attention and intensity they can put on the basketball, it's a really potent combination for their defense. And their defense is real. Shout out Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff Van Gundy's done a wonderful job out there this year putting together a competent defense around James Harden.
And then James Harden last night, 35 points, 10 assists. The 3-point volume hasn't been what it was in years past. But, I mean, if I think about the Clippers strategically, and I'm probably reading too much into this, but Kawhi has traditionally played early, gotten hurt late, almost skipped the first half of the year this year, ramped up to this moment, and James Harden carrying the load. But I almost feel like James Harden is also ramping up now. These guys are old and they know they've been through a lot of 82-game seasons. They know kind of the rhythm of it. So when I just look at this run they're on, I'm kind of buying the Clippers. I think they're one of the hottest teams in all of the NBA and one of the toughest ones on both ends of the floor. They're hard to guard. They rebound. They defend. They have athleticism. I just think I don't hear anybody talking about them. And I'm looking at the Clippers going, would I be that surprised if they made it to the conference finals?
It's a lot nicer to be the hunter than the hunted. And I
Yeah.
think they've been in the opposite chair every single year. And I think it's not that expectations are low. They just had no expectations this year. They didn't know if Kawhi was going to play. They didn't know if it was going to work. Norm Powell's really stepped up. Was Chris Dunn going to be good? Like, they've made great signings. And I think Bogdanovich gives them a really nice, change of pace element off the bench. Like, he's able to come in and just microwave score. He's one of those guys that he can handle the ball. He can be on ball. He can play off ball and spot up and attack. He's really intelligent as a cutter, really intelligent as a playmaker on swing opportunities. So I think he's given them a really nice element and a change of pace off the bench instead of, the Terrence Mann where we need a little bit of defense, but you're just going to stand in the corner. I think they've got a nice little mix going in terms of how they all cohesively move together. And I think taking Paul George's ball handling duties and shots out of the mix has been able to allocate properly how much Kawhi, how much James Harden gets to have control of the offense. And that's kind of trickled down into a lot more happiness within the team, I think.
Maybe the opposite team of the Clippers this year has been the Phoenix Suns, who fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder last night, 125-112, and are officially eliminated. The disaster season comes to a close, or effectively comes to a close. What do you make of this one?
Do you think one of those 26 GMs that Matt Ishbia said would want to trade rosters and picks, do you think he can call one of them and just be like, hey, do you think they do the deal now? I mean, there's only one team not in the playoffs, not in the play-in, not in the lottery, the Phoenix Suns. They are in a terrible spot. It can't feel good. They've got Bradley Beal there who just says, I love living in Phoenix. I'm not waiving my no trade clause. Like, no problem. It feels like they're in purgatory, and it's not a good place to be. And they need a hard reset. And I don't know how they get there without the assets that they have. I don't know what KD is going to fetch them. And I don't know if it comes to the point where they feel like we need to get rid of Booker just to be able to like build the kitty back up. So we have some sort of like assets to go after and build our team up, but it's not good. It's really not good. But the story to me in that game was Oklahoma City. And even with guys out, Oklahoma City, they have this San Antonio mindset. Sam Presti's from there. They have this pound the rock mindset where it doesn't matter who's in the game. It doesn't matter who's playing. The standard is the standard. And how you do anything is how you'll do everything. And that's how I think of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they put together a run last night. 4 minutes and 22 seconds left in the second quarter. They were down 57-44. By the time there was 8 minutes and 25 seconds left in the third, they were up 76-69. They outscored Phoenix 32-12, a plus 20 stretch, and it all came from their defense. And when they crank the defense up, when they really get after you, they had 6 turnovers to start the third quarter before they were 3 minutes in. When they crank it up, they get out in transition. They have early opportunities to attack, and they draw fouls. They get N1s. Offense becomes easier, and they just start to wear opponents down. They have the pound the rock mindset where it's just over and over. They keep doing everything right, and they are just hell to play against. And they're going to be a tough out for anybody. They're going to be the favorite in almost any series they go into. And they're one of those teams that it doesn't matter who's playing. They're going to hold the standard. And it's one of the things that I love about them.
I think OKC has the reputation of being consistent. They're a metronome. They're just really good in all quarters. They're really good at this. But I think that they actually might be the most they have the heaviest knockout punch. We think about the death lineup Warriors as like, if you think about knockout punches, death lineup Warriors circa 2015, that's the ultimate knockout punch that even if you were close with 6 minutes to go, you're like, oh God, we're going to lose by 15 because here comes the knockout. The Thunder have that same thing. And usually it comes at the start of the fourth. Just watching them, like usually they have like a 6-point lead, start of the fourth goes in the exact run you're talking about. It's like, oh my God, next thing you know, you have 6 turnovers, haven't scored in 4 minutes, and they've got a bunch of transition. This time it happened a little bit early, but it seems to happen, if not every game, pretty darn close to every single game. They have one of these runs that just puts you down and you can never recover from.
Yeah, I think JJ was talking about it when Luka got thrown out. If you don't have 3 high-level ball handlers out there, they suck the oxygen out of the room in terms of half-court stuff. They get their hands on everything. It steals deflections. They get a ton of live ball turnovers. To me, it's their consistency of doing all the little things. So in the third quarter, they had 2 turnovers. One was a block shot. The other was a Booker turnover. And they both came from X outs. And it was low man help to an X out, low man help to a non-X out. And their intensity to be in position early, close hard, And then what they do is they make you make the next play. They always make you make the next play. They don't just give up a shot. They make you earn each one. And that to me sets them apart in terms of that standard that they all hold. It doesn't matter if it's Caruso, Wallace, or Kendrick Williams. They all hold that standard. They hold each other accountable. And it is the knockout punch because there's nothing easy with them. And then when you get those turnovers, it's so much easier to score in transition off a miss, off a steal, than trying to score against a half-court defense. So their defense generates such easy offense, and they do it by consistently doing everything right they know.
Who else is in near the top in terms of knockout punch? And just for reference, teams like Minnesota and Denver don't have a knockout punch. This is part of Minnesota defends at the level you're talking about, but they don't score quite as at the level. Denver scores pretty consistently, but they can't ever get stops enough to have like a 15-0 run. Mm-hmm. OKC to me is number one, but who else do you think is in that top five? Or yeah,
Boston's got a really strong one. I mean, Boston
Agreed.
They can put it on you in a hurry. They can throw 3-4 threes together, before you even blink. They were up 25-3. Now they didn't win against Cleveland, but being up 25-3 in a game against one of the best teams in the NBA, like they can throw it on you. Cleveland has a great one.
Yep.
When Cleveland gets stops, when they get out and run, they have Mitchell, Garland that can fill it up from the outside. And I honestly think that Houston has a little bit of a knockout punch because they can clamp down so much defensively. And when they get out so quick and run. They're one of those teams that it's not the classic knockout punch like you see with 3-point barrages, but it's more so in the Oklahoma City vein where we're going to play really tough defense. And if we get a few turnovers, we can get Thompson out in transition. We can get Eason out in transition. We get these guys that get easy buckets and we can kind of lay it on you. I don't know that there are any others besides the Lakers lineup that we just talked about that really scare you, that in terms of like, this is something that Oklahoma City, it really doesn't matter who the five guys are. There isn't a 5-man lineup like the Lakers where you're like, we're scared of this. It's interchangeable parts because it's based on the toughness and the intensity of their defense turning into easy offense.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next game I want to talk about, which is the Warriors collapsing against the Spurs 114-111. So this one, if we just go to the end, the Spurs fouled Draymond. They were up 2 and they fouled Draymond with 3 seconds left. And it almost looked intentional. Like they wanted to put Draymond on the line rather than try to guard the Warriors in the half court. And to my surprise, to be honest, he hit both of them. It actually surprised me a little bit, but Harrison Barnes versus Jimmy Butler gets him on the wing and just takes a 1-dribble turnaround jumper from 3 and swishes it. Brutal loss for the Warriors, who have done so much to climb up, and this loss might end up costing them not just, a chance at home court advantage, which they had a chance to climb all the way to 4, but now it might cost them a shot in the playoffs. They might have to now go the hard route through the play-in and potentially match up with OKC in round 1 if they lose a game there. So to me, this is a brutal loss to a team that wasn't necessarily trying to win.
Yeah. Harrison Barnes revenge game. Shout out Harrison. Great day to be a Tar Heel. Yeah. They were up 88-76 going into the fourth. They got Steph 3 minutes of rest before he had to come back in, and it was 92-88. To me, that was a big stretch in the game. The other big stretch was with a minute left, there was a Draymond Green turnover, and then the next possession, there was a Steph Curry inbounds turnovers. You have to get shots on those possessions. It doesn't matter if you make them or if you miss them. You can't not get shots. And to me, those were the two biggest possessions, especially the Draymond one. And you see Steph run these so often. He's so scary when he's coming off pin downs and screens. He pulls so much gravity to him. And Steph was coming off one, and it felt like Draymond was just locked in on him because Podziemski had a wide open layup on the slip. And so you think about that possession, you get a layup there, or even not a layup, just not a turnover, you're getting a shot. The next one was the inbound. It was a terrible angle that Jimmy came to try to accept the ball from Steph. No passing angle, turnover to Harrison Barnes. Those two possessions, you just got to get shots there. And especially what they're fighting for here, what you just talked about at playoff positioning, you can't drop that game. You can't go into the fourth quarter up 12 and lose that game with 2 turnovers by your most experienced players in the last minute of the game.
And so now you just look at it and say their route now, if they are the 7th seed, they're a game behind Memphis. Now, I think Memphis is going to lose a few more. They've got Minnesota tonight. They've got Denver right after that. Like, I think they might lose their next 2 games. So you do have a chance to climb, but now you have to go the hard route. And you're probably at best climbing up to a 6 seed facing the Lakers in round 1. It's just their margin was so thin. They make the move at the deadline. and they just climb and claw all the way back. And it's like, you're right there, but this loss might be the ship going down inside of land because it's that costly, especially if it gives them. I think one of the underrated things about the play-in is every team, especially veteran ones, are exhausted this time of year. If you get one full week off before the playoffs to prep and to do all that stuff, especially for an older team, it's a huge difference. Now you might end up having to play on Tuesday of next week. And then if you lose, you play again on Thursday, and then you got to go straight in and fly to the city where you're going to play. There's no break. It's like the regular season just continued. So I don't know what the percentage is that this lowered their odds, but I have to imagine that loss last night had a meaningful impact on their odds of making it to the conference finals.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never want to put yourself in a one-off game. I think that's why you think about March Madness. There's so many upsets and Cinderella things, like maybe not in NIL era, but like previously, these teams are somewhat evenly matched where you can have guys go out and have big games, and the Warriors have lost before in the play-in tournament. Like, you don't want to put yourself in a place where one game can decide your fate from the 82 games prior, especially when you're coming into a game like this where you have to have it and the fourth quarter is there for you and you give it away with careless turnovers. Roy Williams, my college coach, had a quote from Dean Smith that every turnover is either from selfishness or carelessness. And both times last night, it looked like they were from carelessness. And you don't want to see that stuff when it comes to these two Hall of Fame level players in such an important game for your team.
The last game of the year, I see the chat already talking about it. The last game on Sunday, everybody plays at the same time. Clippers, Warriors, both teams are almost certainly going to have a lot to play for. A lot. That game is going to be playoff start early.
Where at?
Oh man, I had this here before. Let me see. Do you see it, James? Where that game is on Sunday? Let me see. I got it pulled up. It is at Golden State and the Bay. That's going to be a great one. That's going to be an all-timer, man. I can't wait for it. Two more games to hit real quick. Bulls get the win over the Heat. This is a pre-play-in preview because these two teams are jockeying for home court in the play-in. And the Bulls got the win, 119-111. One of my favorite teams right now, 13-5 in their last 18. It was a fun one. Just watching the highlights through this one, obviously didn't catch the game, but I want to ask you about Tyler Hero's transition three. You know the one I'm talking about? I think they're down 5 points in like 30 seconds or something like that. There was just enough time that if he goes in and gets a 2, there's time on the clock for you to play it straight, get a stop, and now you need a 3. He pulled up for 3 and he missed it. And then Matas made a quarter 3 the other way to seal the game. But I don't even know if I'm mad at it, to be honest with you. I actually think I might have understood it.
I'm not mad at it. But I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. It's incredibly difficult to get a wide open 3-point shot in the NBA. Yeah. It is even harder to get a wide open 3-point shot when another team knows you need a 3. I mean, look at Harrison. Yeah. Harrison Barnes made that shot, yes, but like, would you rather have Harrison? Yeah, would you rather him shoot a wide open 3-point shot or that shot? Like, if you ask any coach, take time, anything away, like, you want a wide open 3-point shot. Hero is your best 3-point shooter. I have no problem with him shooting it. It kind of falls into the fouling up 3. Like, at that point, you're playing a math game. Like, the odds are stacked against you in terms of winning it. Like, you've done enough to put yourself down 5. Like, it's not like you've played better than the other team. You're trying to rig this so you can actually beat the odds because your win probability is lower there. So I did see some math online, and I don't know how reputable it is, but I did see some math from a few people that if he has a better than a 41% chance of making that shot, the odds are better in terms of being down 2 than down 3. And I think some of that
math, I guarantee you that math does not factor in what you're talking about. If it's the last play and you're down 3, the number is worse. You're going to get a worse shot because teams are just going to guard the perimeter and give up the 2. So that math to me is an incomplete math.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I have no problem with it. Make or miss, like, you're going to live with that. I do understand leads into the Seth Partnow quack 2 theory about going for the quick 2 when you're down 3, right? So like, I think this leads like into that same sort of line of thinking of like, the numbers are so stacked against you. You have to have some moment where you're not supposed to win that game. So you do have to take the risk. You've put yourself down 5. And so I'm okay with him shooting that shot, but who knows how they feel inside their locker room.
So now it looks like both teams have, gimmies. They're not good enough teams to have gimmies, but both of them have 2 tanking teams to close out the year. It looks like the Bulls will have home court advantage against Miami in the first play-in game. And I'm rooting for the Bulls. One of my favorite teams. I'm rooting for them to make it to the playoffs because I just find them interesting and they're on a heater right now. And there's something I like about teams that probably should tank that push through, because I just don't want teams, all teams tanking. I like that there's this fun little story at the end of the year of a team that's in the middle. The last one, near and dear to my heart, Nuggets get the win in Sacramento, 124-116. In the first game since Michael Malone was fired, Nuggets were on a 4-game losing streak coming into this one, and they had dropped 12 of their last 20. Or I'm sorry, they were 12-13 in their last 25 coming into it. They were stuck in the mud. And last night they get a win behind my guy, Jalen Pickett, playing 31 minutes. Russell Westbrook only 17. Like, we get our first read of how, there it is, my guy. If you don't know, Jalen Pickett, to me, I love this guy. 6'1", slow as hell, plays like Andre Miller, just really awkward game to him, but he's just solid, a zero mistake type player. But the Nuggets get the win, and they had not looked like they looked last night for a long time. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think that there was a little bit of joy back there. I think that you're starting to see the stories trickle out. Like, everybody had their leaks ready. You're starting to see the stories come out about Malone and Westbrook and how it rubbed people the wrong way, how Westbrook was getting preferential treatment to somebody that maybe didn't meet the standard within their locker room that deserved preferential treatment. And I think last night was pretty telling in terms of the minute distribution between Pickett and Westbrook in terms of, how everybody else might have thought about the situation. And your guy came through. He adds an element in terms of shooting that they desperately need out on the court. He also adds an element of being able to handle the ball, being able to set good screens. He's a phenomenal screen setter. We talked about one that he had in Oklahoma City the other couple months ago, maybe the second game or the first game they played on that back-to-back, whereas his first possession he's on the left side of the court and he doesn't want to shoot a shot. He sprints across the other side and sets a pin screen for Christian Brown to hit a three off of Jokic, something. He's just one of those guys who's hyper intelligent. He knows exactly what he's capable of on the court, and he never turns down the opportunities that he can shoot in rhythm and on balance. And I think that's an element they've really been missing on that roster or on the court.
He might actually play in the playoffs, which is kind of wild, for a guy that's basically came into the year as the 15th man. I mean, literally the last guy on the roster, and he's become a very good contributor in limited minutes. Last night he plays 31 under a new coach. So there's always somebody that gets elevated under a new coach. The last two more things here I want to go to, really they're connected. And that is that Jokic last night, I've watched him his whole career. That was the most vocal he's been that I can recall, not in a playoff game at least, where he was just like leading the team, like high-fiving guys, running around, instructing, yelling at guys. Just, he was so into the game from the leadership perspective. And, I think some people will look at that and say, oh, Malone's gone, he's happy or this or that. I've always wondered, Malone is such a vocal person, big presence, everything else, and no fault of his own. Sometimes these are just clash of personalities or different things. I always wondered if Malone left space for leadership on the court because of how he carried himself. And again, I think that's probably a little too simple, but last night, Yoke's always been the reluctant leader, the lead by example, but quiet. Last night, he just wasn't that. And it made me wonder if, like, Yoke knows Adelman is an X's and O's guru. He's a smart guy, but he's not necessarily like a general. Malone was a general. He's gone. And maybe it allowed a space for Jokic to walk into. It's just a thought I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think he really cares. Like, he cares deeply. I know that there's the image out there of like, oh, like he doesn't care. Like, there's the funny TikToks of like the guy waking up as Jokic and like walking into the gym and playing, but like he cares deeply. And you always see him in interviews reference his time in Europe, and this is common from my time there. Your coach can get fired at any time, and anybody can get cut. They will let go of players really quickly. It's one of those things where it's a lot more cutthroat than the NBA. And so there's a sense of normalcy to him where, yes, this is his only coach, but like seeing a coach get fired like that or a player get cut probably isn't like out of the norm of how he grew up experiencing basketball. So I'm sure he's a little bit more comfortable in this situation than maybe like some American players would be growing up with it. But he really stepped up in terms of, this is my team, I'm going to take ownership of it. And I'm sure that there is like a vacuum that he's kind of stepped into here with Booth and Malone gone, where he is the tip of the spear. He is the guy that everybody's going to look to, and how he reacted, whether it was positive or negative, was going to speak to a lot of how the group was going to go.
So the last thing I'm going to say along this note is Yoke had a banger of a line last night that I'm sure everybody saw. After the game, he was being interviewed and he was asked about Josh Kroenke firing Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. And he says, people say that we were vulnerable, but the beast is always the most dangerous when they're vulnerable. Maybe he woke up the beast. He meaning Josh Kroenke. I mean, first of all, what a bar. Great bar. And then number two, this to me is the third in a trilogy of quotes this year that actually point to insight into Nikola Jokic that I don't think people really understand. The first one came after they lost to the Washington Wizards. He had 56 points in that game and they lost. And he said after the game, he said, where I come from, meaning Serbia, if you lose a game like that, you're not going to get a full paycheck. Your check might be a little bit less than it is before. And it's one of those things where it kind of shows you, like, most NBA players would never say this. And Jokic is saying, like, we deserve to not be paid for the game we just played. Like, we don't deserve that. And then the next one came when Luka Doncic got traded, who, by the way, had one of his best friends in the NBA. And he said, yeah, I think that should happen. If you're not performing your duty, everyone should feel like you could be traded if you're not coming in shape and doing this stuff. And that's his good buddy. And I think he was using that as an example to kind of speak to his team about, like, hey, man, that's in the NBA, that's absurd. How could you do this? But in real life, if you don't perform your job at the best of your ability, you're out the door. And that's how it should be. And then, of course, last night to say maybe he, meaning Josh Kroenke, woke up the beast by showing everyone that you can be traded, you can be fired, you can be let go. To me, it gives insight into Jokic that he actually looks at this and says, the NBA doesn't operate fully on meritocracy, especially with players, but it should. And maybe that this was a message to everybody on the Nuggets roster of, you think we can just play this back year after year? This might be your last week on the Denver Nuggets. Everyone play like it. And if you want to stay here, go and show that you actually deserve to be on this roster.
There you go. That's the European basketball mindset in a nutshell, because playing over there and experiencing it, you are not the center of it like you are in the NBA. The players do not run things over there. It is coach and ownership and management, and you can be let go at any time, whether you're coaching the team, whether you're managing the team, or whether you're playing. And so I think that mindset is a little foreign to people that grew up with the NBA or have only experienced like Americanized basketball.
Yeah. I think glory in the US and just part of American culture, this is not even a knock. I don't think one thing is better than the other. Tenure be a big part of it. Charisma can be a big part of it. Obviously talent. And I think with Yoke, it's a little bit different. It's like, hey, you gain this by evidence of what you can do on the court. Your commitment to the people you're trying to lead. It's not like, oh, you're the best, therefore we should give this to you. It's, are you the best for us? And Yoke just has a different perspective on that bleeds out in small ways because he doesn't talk much. But when you listen for it, you hear it. And he's basically saying, anybody on this roster, you could be traded this summer. So is the beast woken up now that we just fired the coach and the GM? I hope so. All right, we get out of here on the second night of our second to end night of the week. We always get out of here by giving some shout outs. This segment is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can, America's #1 sportsbook, get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'll start just to set the table. I want to give a shout out to Brandin Podziemski. Now, this was a tough one because last night he sucked. So I filled this one out a little bit earlier. But prior to that, in his previous 4 games, 24 points a game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 61% three-point shooting. He had 4 absolute heaters in a row and was looking like a main control. Like, we know he's a good player and we kind of count some nights he'll be there, some nights he won't. But 4 in a row going into the playoffs, you're looking at that going, man, that changes the dynamic if he's a 20-point per game scorer on great efficiency.
Yeah, he's a nice player. He really is. I think the consistency, like, you want to see it always at that level with young players. You always want to see the consistency come along because young players can hit peaks, they can hit valleys, but like seeing him put together a run of consistency would be really nice for them going into the playoffs. And I think he's going to be an important piece. He's a swing factor for them because he connects so many lineups with his passing, with his playmaking, with getting downhill, but it's always off of somebody's actions. He's not going to be the one starting it. So him shooting the ball well is a huge X factor for them going into the playoffs. My shout out from the Chicago Bulls, the scrappy, non-tanking Bulls. I had to come back, man. I covered this guy over the Olympics, and there was a part of me, I talked with some of the guys in Australia, there was a part of me that I was not sold on him as an NBA player. I didn't know if it was going to work out. I thought it might be a little clunky. 7-2 in their last 9 games, averaging 19, 11, and 10.5, a triple-double in a stretch where they needed it. Josh Giddey, man. Shout out to Josh Giddey. There is something about when your team that drafts you gives up on you. They gave up on him. And yes, like Caruso fits way better to what they're trying to do. But like you're a number 6 pick and your team is like, hey, you're out of here. This isn't going to work. He went through it last year in the playoffs, being benched, end of the season, people not guarding him. To see him come back, to see him put together good games early on to build confidence, and to now see what he's doing right now, averaging a triple-double over his last 9, 7-2 for a team that's not supposed to be winning. Shout out Josh Giddey, man. Congratulations.
I'm with you, man. I'm a Giddey fan. I just think he's a really good player, and his weaknesses are so loud that I think for a lot of people, rightfully so, that's all they see. How do you build around this? How do you make do with the defense and the shooting and this or that? He's such a good team player and such a smart guy, and you put smart players around him and he's going to be amplified. They're on a nice run. It's large part because of him. And I'll say this about the Bulls. They're on a fun run right now. A little bit of a pat on the head kind of run, but I still love it. I'm having fun. If they had Lonzo, he's the perfect kind of guy for the team. He's smart. He also plays this. He brings defense. He's a great fit next to Kobe and next to Giddey. I just wish they had him because I actually think they might be not dangerous to the top 2 seeds in the East, but I do think they would be a level up if they had him.
Yeah, no, he's a really good player. I think they signed him to an extension, right? Didn't they sign him to like 2 years, 20, like 10 a year? He's a really good player. I'm really happy that he came back because it looked like he wasn't going to play basketball again, and that would have been really not nice for anybody involved in the game because he's such a fun player and he's done a wonderful job of revamping how he sees the game, where he fits into their infrastructure. And I love to see him connect lineups and shoot the ball and really push the pace for them. He's such a barometer in terms of them playing fast.
We'll hit that outro music there, James. I will say, Mark, I when I give a take and whether you or Legs go, I'm like, okay, that one didn't land. So I give my Lonzo take. You say, okay, yeah. I love it. I love it.
They're not pushing Boston or Cleveland. Get out of here.
I said not pushing those 2 teams, but I just said they'd be a level up of what they are. They'd be like a 7 seed caliber team. You know, that's where they would be if they had him. It's not the hottest take. He's no Jalen Pickett. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely
Mark,
not.
Always appreciate you hopping on 2 nights in a row, 2 really good shows, 2 really good nights in the NBA, man. Appreciate you so much. Anything you want to plug or push?
No, nothing. Just Low Man Help Substack. We did had half the GMs in the league following. We lost one sometime around November.
Really?
He might have made a move that we weren't too pleasantly surprised with on Low Man Help, and he might have read a few pieces that said this might be the dumbest move ever. So shout out Nico, former subscriber of Low Man Help.
Oh, that's hilarious. You even call him out. There you go, man. Nico Harrison was not a fan of Low Man Help anymore. Oh, my God. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Legs is back tomorrow. Big games tonight to set the table for the final weekend in the NBA. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you.
All silly like the mayor.